From viral plush toys to furious stockists, Jellycat's story isn't all cute and fluffy. Today we're exploring what's really going on behind the British success story that has been hitting the headlines for all the wrong reasons.
I just thought it was very strange, as I think in our previous communications, I'd shown her my Instagram to be, look, I've got a decent following.
And they'd made it very awkward placing orders as well. But until the letter came, we didn't know any more, prior to that.
For them, it's about brand positioning and perception, whether we agree with that or not.
Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm Catherine Edley, and in the next few minutes, you're about to get powerful real-world retail strategies from insights shared both from my guests and myself, backed up by my 25 years in the retail industry. Keep listening to learn how to grow a thriving, profitable product business. Let's jump in with this latest episode. What fascinates me about this story is that it's not only a thought-provoking and cautionary tale about what happens when a brand takes off, but it's a story about a brand I've long been aware of as both a retail expert and a parent. So when I started to see the backlash on social media from shops who've been dropped by Jellycat, I knew I wanted to put together a podcast episode to really dive into the details. It all started for me when my daughter was a baby and someone gave her a bashful bunny, one of those classic Jellycat toys that's instantly lovable. A few years later, Jellycat launched the Amusables range, inanimate objects with smiling faces and dangly legs. That was the year we bought her the smiling watermelon for her 8th birthday, and it quickly became one of her favourite toys. Jellycats was such a regular feature of her Christmas and birthday list that when she turned 14, we threw a Jellycat-themed birthday party. I spent hours decorating food with tiny smiling faces just like the Amusables, and she loved it. The centrepiece was a cake made to look just like the Jellycat birthday cake plush. Last year, we even made the trip to Selfridges to visit the fish and chips pop-up, which ended up being one of my most popular reels on Instagram. But this story isn't about me and my family. When I shared on Instagram that I was planning an episode about Jellycat, I was overwhelmed by the response. People told me how deeply they care about this brand, and some retailers even admitted that Jellycat had been at the heart of their business for the past 10 years. What's making the story so difficult is that Jellycat always felt like one of those rare special brands that got it right. They had the design, the creativity, the magic, and they had the loyalty of independent shops who loved selling their products. Now that relationship feels fractured. It's a reminder of how quickly things can shift, even for a brand that seems untouchable. You can have a beautiful product, loyal stockists, and years of goodwill, and still find yourself in the middle of controversy when things go wrong. So who are the company behind Jellycat? Well, as a brief history, they were founded in 1999 by two brothers, Thomas and William Gattaker. The founders are notoriously publicity shy, and there are very few interviews or even quotes available from them. The company grew, but things really took off in 2018 with the launch of the inanimate objects with cute smiley faces, the Amusables. The Amusables were a major hit, tying in with the kidult trend, where adults spend money on items more usually associated with children, such as soft toys. According to a 2024 Guardian article, the brothers first hit the Sunday Times Rich List in 2018 when the business was valued at $155 million. By 2022, revenue was reported to have jumped 72% on the previous year to $146 million, then grew another 37% to $200 million in 2023, with a whopping £67 million of pre-tax profit. So the company was growing fast, and in 2022, for the first time, the brothers stepped back from the leadership of Jellycat. They brought in Arnaud Meisel, who joined Jellycat in 2022 as CEO. It appears that the business was growing rapidly, and they decided to bring someone in with previous experience in a global company. For example, Arnaud's previous company, Ren Skincare, was quoted as having a £1.2 billion turnover in 2023. Interestingly, in light of what has happened recently at Jellycat, Arnaud Meisel, who was CEO at Ren from 2017 before leaving for Jellycat in early 2022, presided over a move to refocus and reposition Ren, not only as a more sustainable brand, but also away from mass market retailers and towards premium beauty. This is worth bearing in mind as we continue through our story. So Jellycat has become, in recent years, more than just a toy brand. It's a cultural phenomenon. On TikTok and Instagram, dedicated fan accounts post daily about their collections, racking up millions of views. And Jellycat hunts, where collectors scour shops for rare or retired designs, have become a trend in their own right. One of the biggest drivers of this viral moment has been the Jellycat pop-ups. These aren't just a place to buy a plush toy, they're full-blown experiences. They started in late 2023 in New York, where Jellycat partnered with FAO Schwarz to launch the Jellycat Diner, where customers could order a plush burger or milkshake and watch staff perform a playful cooking routine before serving the toy on a tray. It became a social media sensation, with reservations selling out and TikToks of the experience going viral. Then came the Paris Patisserie pop-up in Galerie Lafayette Haussmann, a luxurious French-inspired setup where plush pastries were wrapped like high-end treats. The setting alone inside one of Paris's most premium department stores was a statement that Jellycat was positioning itself as a lifestyle and design brand, not just a children's toy company. And by the summer of 2024, London got its own version with the fish and chips pop-up at Selfridges. The queues went around the block, and my own reel from that event became one of my most viewed posts of the year. It was clever. Jellycat tapped into British nostalgia while pairing it with one of the UK's most prestigious retailers, reinforcing the brand as quirky, aspirational, and fun. And let me tell you, it was mostly adults at the Selfridges pop-up, and they were spending hundreds of pounds on these limited edition items. I mean, these pop-ups, they weren't just marketing stunts. They signaled Jellycat's ambition to move upmarket and cement its reputation as a brand with premium, design-led credentials. But alongside the success stories, a darker side started to emerge.
Police are hunting masked thieves who broke into an English shop by ramming the door with a car and a wooden plank. CCTV footage shows one of the thieves grabbing Jellycat collectible toys from the shelves and packing them into a bag before taking off. The store owner, the Gorge Bear Company, estimates the total price of the 200 stolen toys to be £20,000.
There were reports of Jellycat thefts, with plush toys so valuable and in demand they had become a target for shoplifters. And 2023 was also a turning point for many independents. Some noticed that Jellycat's agents began to speak differently about the brand. There was a shift, a move towards curating who represented the Jellycat image. Hannah Davis, who owned, at the time, West Stanton, a design-led kids store in Surrey, had been trying for years to become a Jellycat stockist. Despite multiple conversations with Jellycat in 2021 and 2022, she was turned down. But in 2023, everything changed.
The lady that I'd spoken to numerous times and met with came into my store and introduced Jellycat to me as a brand. And I was like, this is so weird, because I don't think she knows that we've met twice and spoken on email quite a few times. So it's a bit like, this doesn't give me great vibes anyway. Search your inbox before you turn up in someone's shop. But she was like, yeah, we would love you to stock Jellycat. We're moving away from like the garden centre, Waterstones vibe. And we're really looking for like design-led, independent stores. She said the owners, I don't know who the owners of Jellycat are, but the owners really want it to be like a trend, design-led brand. We don't want it to be like what granny buys the new baby anymore. We want it to be really cool. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. Also thinking like, I've replaced you because you said no to me for 3 years. Yes. Even though I told you I was the design-led store, I told you that I wasn't like the other ones, and you ignored me. And in some scenarios, were a bit rude. So I was just like, oh, thank you. But actually, you know, we've got other brands that are cooler now. So I never ordered with them. But yeah, it was an extreme pivot from the years of no to let me introduce you to Jellycat. We would love you to work with us.
And did you get the sense that she'd come to the store because she'd maybe seen your social media, or she'd seen the store and she felt like it fit the profile? Was she concerned about the way the store looked, for example?
Definitely. She said, because she had said, and actually with Leewood, when I first stocked them, somebody came to see how like the aesthetics of the store were before they would approve me as a retailer. I'm guessing Jellycat kind of adopted that. But yeah, she had come in to see the vibe. But I just thought it was very strange. I don't know how she found me, because I think in our previous communications, I'd shown her my Instagram to be like, look, I've got a decent following. Like you can see the kind of brands that I hold, how the aesthetics of the shop are. But no, she fully came in as if She had never heard of me. We'd never spoken.
So she said they were actively looking to move away from some retailers.
Yes. She basically said the more old school, it was definitely garden centres. They didn't like Jellycat being associated with garden centres, was the general gist that I got. And Waterstones, they were just like, as if it was a bit beneath them now, where it is kind of their bread and butter as well. Like, I've worked with and stocked so many brands over the years that they know who their audience they want are, but they're also, you can't neglect the people who are actually buying from you. And Jellycat must make a fortune out of the garden centres because you do have the grannies going in and treating them. And having a kids store, grannies spend a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like, I get that you want to be trendy and design-led, but you do make pink fluffy bunnies.
It was clear that Jellycat's idea of who they were and who their retail base should be was changing. The indie crisis really began in January 2025 when Jellycat made a major operational change. They replaced their independent agents with an in-house sales team. From that moment on, according to both existing and former stockists, ordering became much more difficult. It was email-based, there were no more phone calls or personal conversations with agents who really knew the shops. And many at that point had not actually had anybody from Jellycat in their shop for quite some time. Then came the letters. Stockists were suddenly divided into 3 categories. The ones who were confirmed as official stockists going forward, the ones who were told they had the potential to improve with no real clarity on what that meant, and around 100 stockists, or roughly 8% of their network, were cut entirely. Retailers were blindsided. There was no explanation of how these decisions were made, and according to a current stockist I spoke to, Jellycat has never shared their criteria. Even for those who weren't cut, the tone of communication felt unsettling. One current stockist, who was told they could continue but would need to improve their Jellycat experience to keep their status next year, described it as feeling like a veiled threat. Instead of a sense of partnership, there was a sense of being judged without clear standards or guidance. Georgie Stewart from Stewart's of Bakewell in the Peak District was one of the stockists to receive their letter withdrawing their status as an official Jellycat stockist.
It came completely out of the blue. Although we had an inkling in the fact that it was becoming increasingly difficult to keep supply in the store, and they'd made it very awkward placing orders as well. But until the letter came, we didn't know any more prior to that, and that was the 17th of June.
I see. And you hadn't had any direct communication from your Jellycat rep? It was just direct from the company?
Prior to January, we'd had an agent and they were let go, and Jellycat employed reps. So we had a rep for the first time from January. We only seen him once in store, and everything pretty much was done on email or telephone, but it just made it very difficult. Placing orders. They sent out an order form on a Monday that you had to do online, but it was obscure things. And then there was no guarantee that what you ordered is, you even could get it. And so from having had stock in store for 20 years, there was weeks where we had nothing or very, very little stock.
Yeah, so you'd been a Jellycat stockist for 20 years. And when would you say the stock problems really began?
January. A little bit before Christmas, it was becoming increasingly difficult, but certainly the biggest problems came from January onwards.
How has it impacted you, both emotionally to get informed in this way, but also from a business perspective?
Well, from a business perspective, it's been very difficult because we've always believed, my husband and I were in partnership together with the store, that we shouldn't sell any one product. But Jellycat has a huge following, locally and with collectors. It will impact us, obviously, and we're desperately looking around for new stockists, and it's interesting how many people want you to suddenly stock their product. Emotionally, it's been an absolute roller coaster. Just the fact that it came out of the blue, there was no consultation, and the wording in the letter was awful. We've cried. There's no doubt about it. We've both cried. Just because you think you're doing your best, and the way they've let us go.
So what was behind this decision? Is it simply about stock? Stock certainly comes up again and again, from the stockists who were cut to those who are still on the list. Massive demand and limited availability have become the defining challenge. I spoke with several current Jellycat stockists who, for obvious reasons, weren't able to talk publicly. But when I asked one what their biggest wish was from Jellycat, their answer was immediately stock. The frustrations that they shared were hard to ignore. There's no clear information about when stock will be available, no proper B2B ordering system, and if you don't respond to a stock email on the day it lands, you lose your chance to order. Back orders are being cancelled without notice, and crucially, the core lines such as Bashful Bunnies and Bartholomew Bears that customers ask for every single day have been unavailable for months at a time. If you want to see real evidence of how the balance of power has really shifted towards Jellycat, one stockist told me that they were offered a summer bundle. Now, this summer bundle is something that I've heard about from a few stockists. But this person went into a bit more detail. They said with nothing else available, they felt they had no choice but to take this summer bundle. But the bundle had to be purchased sight unseen. They didn't know necessarily what they were going to get. And surprise, surprise, when it arrived, it wasn't made up of their best-selling lines. In fact, it was full of what seemed like obscure or slower-selling items that they knew that their customers wouldn't buy. And they felt that it was a tactic by Jellycat to shift their own dead stock. As one retailer told me bluntly when I asked them what it was like working with Jellycat, they described them as
tricky, arrogant, absent, inefficient. Jellycat have certainly lost their cute and fluffy appeal to deal with.
And it's this contrast between the adorable smiling toys and the strained relationship with their stockist that has made this story so striking. So is this a move to protect strained stock levels and perhaps give priority to more premium channels? Of course, we can't know for sure without being a fly on the wall in Jellycat's boardroom. Now, I did reach out to Jellycat and invite them to contribute to this podcast, but perhaps unsurprisingly, I didn't get a response. To get some perspective, I turned to Therese Ortenblad, wholesale expert and founder of the Small Business Collective, to hear her take on what has happened.
In my 17 years in the industry, I haven't really seen any brand or company reshuffle their stockists this way. There are many commercial reasons why Jellycat has made this decision, I'm sure. We can only speculate, but I think they made it very clear that for them, it's about brand positioning and perception. Whether we agree with that or not, I believe that they want their end consumer to have the same experience, whether they're shopping with an independent store or in one of their pop-ups or on their website. They want more control of how their brand is perceived. It's well known that they have had some stock challenges over the last few years with growing popularity, and dealing with larger retailers that can buy bigger volumes and forecast more can really help to forecast better and ease that load. It will also mean less spend on resources because you need less people in sales and customer service and sales administration, less people packing orders, dealing with less small orders from independents, which can be time consuming. It is less invoices, less bookkeeping, less shipment coordination, and a lot of things just can become slightly easier, I suppose. I also believe that they are moving more towards a direct-to-consumer model with focusing more on their pop-ups, more on their big retailer partnerships, more on retailing through their own website, etc.
Therese's view that this is largely about cost-cutting and control mirrors what we've seen under Jellycat CEO Arnaud Meisel at his previous brand. Arnaud, who previously led Ren Skincare, is known for strategies built around tight brand control, operational efficiency, and premium positioning. Streamlining wholesale means fewer small accounts to manage, less admin, and a stronger focus on larger retailers and direct-to-consumer sales. Now, direct-to-consumer sales naturally deliver far higher margins, so they are often an area of focus, especially for a brand with such strong brand awareness. Automating systems and reducing personal interaction also helps keep costs down. And here's the thing, cost-cutting and margin growth are not inherently bad moves. In fact, they're strategies I often advise fast-growing companies to adopt and they're scaling because they set the business up for long-term success. So if this is what Jellycat is doing, there's a measure of good business sense behind it. And some voices online even support Jellycat's approach. They argue that the company is deliberately holding back expansion while carefully and slowly onboarding new factories to ensure capacity and quality. The logic is that if Jellycat just wanted to cash in, they could have churned out lower quality versions years ago, but they haven't. In that sense, it could be a sign they're trying to protect the premium image of the brand and the quality of their products, even if the process is frustrating. However, speculation among retailers, and it's something I believe too, suggests that further cuts to independence are likely. The open letter sent to some stockists telling them that their Jellycat experience will be reviewed before confirming their 2026 status points strongly in that direction. That said, it is also important to note that not all current stockists have had a bad experience. One retailer told me, "My rep was very interested in how we present not just Jellycat products, but our whole shop, our ethos, the way we dispatch online sales, beautifully boxed with handwritten messages." She spent over 2 hours with me talking about how Jellycat wants its stockists to align with their brand. While I'm not here to defend a multi-million-pound company, I do hope I'm not the only one who's had a slightly better experience. This highlights that Jellycat's approach, for better or worse, is about curation and alignment. They want their brand represented in a certain way, and some shops see that as a positive challenge, while others naturally feel excluded, especially the way that the change was communicated. To get another perspective, I spoke with Hilary James, founder of Wardrobe at the Cross, a women's wear boutique in Cheshire. Hilary once tried to stock Jellycat, but never got through their door. As a retailer and a marketing consultant and fractional CMO, she can see both sides of the Jellycat conundrum.
I would say that there are some amazing retail environments where Jellycat is sold beautifully. So, for example, and I've seen various pieces around Insta in the last few days of beautiful retail environments, independent retail environments that could not be more exquisite and offer the flourish that I think Jellycat would want. And to me, that seems crazy that they wouldn't want that individual interpretation of their brand. Some of these retailers have supported them for 20, 25 years when they were nothing. That seems really sad, but also quite shaky from a commercial point of view from them, because those environments look beautiful to me. I can see that maybe there are certain environments that are perhaps not optimum, then they're not selling the story. But actually, there are some beautiful independents selling that story incredibly well, and I think that can only be brand enhancing. That letter that was sent was emotionless, void of any humour or Jellycat touches. It was just kind of a, "Dear John, there we go." So just playing that out as a brand marketeer, really poor. However, I can see their point. If they have got a real protection problem around this brand, and they do believe it's perhaps not being sold in the best environments, they have a job to do for their shareholders, for the brand, to make sure that they continue to grow in the way they wish to protect that brand. And their brand is everything to them. You can see that from their collateral, their Insta, everything they put out there. Brand is absolutely central to them. I can see the reason. However, I think there is a bit of a conceit there, because I do believe that, they're sending out these things saying it's all about stock, we can't supply you. I actually do think, yes, I'm sure there is a stock problem. I'm sure they can't supply everybody. But I do think that it's more about brand than it is about stock.
Ultimately, this story is beginning to feel like a brand desperately trying to control and harness its viral success, all while juggling stock shortages and negative press around Jellycat thefts. But the biggest issue here isn't just what they've done, it's how they have communicated it. According to BBC's You and Yours, Jellycat did issue a public apology in their statement to the BBC. But crucially, there was no direct apology to the stockists themselves, the very businesses that helped build their success. Going back to Hilary James's point, the real sting in all of this lies in the tone and delivery of the news. Stockists were hit with vague, corporate-sounding brand elevation emails with no real explanation of what that meant, and often no actual visit from Jellycat in a long time. For many, this lack of clarity caused confusion and genuine hurt. To dig into the communication side of this story, I spoke with Fiona Minnitt, PR expert and founder of Boss Your PR, to hear her thoughts on how Jellycat handled their messaging.
So from a PR and comms perspective, I have to say I was absolutely startled, actually, by the way that this was actioned and handled by Jellycat, I rated quite poorly. There was a real lack of transparency. There was no personal approach. There was zero empathy. There was dismissive tone. And retailers, partners were, from all accounts, left quite blindsided. Effective communications should provide clear, honest reasons for decisions such as these. And Jellycat didn't. There was sort of abrupt, dismissive emails, correspondence with very little explanation. So we're sorry to let you know that we'll no longer be supplying Jellycat products to X stockist. And the reason given was a brand elevation strategy. What does that mean? What does that mean to a trusted stockist, to a trusted partner? There was no personal sort of address to Jellycat stockist. I mean, it's laughably far from being personalised and respectful. A real lack of clarity also comes through in terms of both the wider reasoning and understanding the context for the changes, but also in the implications of this kind of overhaul and this move. Some stockists being told that they would no longer be supplied, please do not place more orders as they will not be fulfilled. And others were told that their accounts would be unaffected, that supply would continue where available, but that they would not be an official Jellycat stockist. And not only are Jellycat dismissing previously trusted stockists and partners, they are creating a tiered system, again, amongst other trusted partners and stockists, small businesses that have shown loyalty to the Jellycat brand. And the tone of the communication really suggested to partners, stockists, that they were no longer valuable to Jellycat. And this kind of language really seriously damages trust. It erodes goodwill, both amongst stockists, partners, but also the wider retail community and consumers. And there seems to have been very little acknowledgement on the part of Jellycat as to how the change would affect small businesses, both financially and emotionally.
Fiona was not the only person to be shocked and taken aback by the tone of Jellycat's letters. After those letters went out, many stockists took to social media to voice their frustration and to share screenshots of what they've received. And the backlash has been severe. Jellycat's Trustpilot page had to be turned off after it was flooded with negative reviews from angry customers and retailers. Social media is awash with critical posts, and even some of the large Jellycat fan accounts, the ones that used to create so much free buzz for the brand, have started speaking out. One of the current stockists I spoke to told me about the conversations that she's had with customers. As one shopper put it, "We'd rather buy our Jellycats with you than in the big stores, like we always have. It's our tradition." And that's the problem. Jellycat's move towards a tightly controlled premium retail model directly conflicts with the hunt mentality that made the brand so special. Customers loved the thrill of discovering a new Jellycat in an unexpected independent shop, but that sense of adventure is disappearing. Instead, everything feels like it's being funneled into a narrow, high-end vision of the brand. And that raises a simple question: why couldn't Jellycat have created a range for smaller shops and another for high-end retailers? There was a way to balance brand elevation with loyalty to the independents who helped them grow, but that opportunity seems to have been missed. For example, the core products like the Bashful Bunny and Bartholomew Bear could be kept always in stock and available to service the lucrative gifting market with a more limited range in premium retail destinations for the collectors. Surely that could have been a compromise to keep everyone happy. All of this makes me wonder, is Jellycat at risk of becoming just another fad? Now, I have seen this pattern before. Back in the late 90s, I spent a summer working in a shop in the US, and one of my jobs was restocking the TY Beanie Babies. I remember having crowds of people waiting for us to put them out on the shelves, and hands pushing me out of the way and grabbing them out of the box as soon as I put it down. So we've had waves of these toy crazes before, from Beanie Babies to Beanie Boos, Squishmallows, and now Labubu. The thing about these crazes is that they can explode overnight and burn out just as quickly. Jellycat has tapped into that same collectible energy, the limited editions, the resale market, the viral moments on TikTok, but if they push too far, they risk alienating the very community that made them a household name. And there's already evidence of cracks: the Trustpilot backlash, the social media negativity, and the sense among retailers and fans that something has changed. with even some of the biggest Jellycat fan accounts speaking out or pulling back from promoting the brand. And I keep thinking, what happens next? Will Jellycat continue down this path of high-end positioning and centralized control? Or will they find a way to bring back some of the charm, the accessibility, and the loyalty that the independents helped build? Because as history has shown us with these types of toy crazes, loyalty and community are the things that last, not just hype. And what we don't know is whether or not this negative publicity will in itself be the downfall of Jellycat. Fiona Minnitt feels that the risk to sales is real, but only time will tell.
And in the context of Jellycat, a brand that perhaps relies on emotional connection and brand loyalty, an erosion of trust and goodwill can occur when mistreatment has maybe been displayed in the supply chain or within business dealings, because many consumers and a sort of growing number of consumers might prefer to support small independent businesses, especially if this is where they have been purchasing Jellycat up until now. And if they see those businesses being poorly treated, then some might choose to stop buying a certain brand altogether, look for alternatives by means of continuing to support the independent businesses. And this could lead to a dip in sales amongst core customer groups that maybe value ethical and more community conscious brands. We've also got to keep in mind that public sentiment is even louder these days, thanks to the amplification that comes with social media, and any negative swell of opinion, fact, whatever it might be, can be quick to spread. Conversely, as purchasers in that kind of fast-paced retail world, we can be fickle. We can be quick to forget.
Jellycat's story is a reminder of how complex success can be. A brand that started with something as simple as a soft toy has become a global phenomenon. But with that journey has come friction, stock shortages, and tough decisions about who gets to stay on the journey. For retailers, there's a clear lesson here: don't put all your eggs in one basket. It is worth pointing out that according to current stockists, Jellycat themselves do not feel comfortable with people taking too large of a percentage of sales from Jellycat. It's something that they actively really do encourage their stockists not to do. And as Therese Autumnblad suggests, protect yourself by having strong alternatives in each category in your shop. No single supplier should hold that much power over your business.
The best thing an independent retailer can do to protect themselves is to have a diverse supplier base, to avoid becoming overly reliant on one or two key brands to drive footfall and sale. Having a mix of bestsellers from different types of brands. I think that it is always, if a category is doing really well, having a second option within that category, I think is a good strategy, so that if something were to happen, if that best-selling brand has any supply issues, they decide to go in a different direction, or anything like that, you have coming up behind that.
For brands, the takeaway is just as important. Love your stockists. They are your storytellers. They're the ones who bring your products to life in front of customers, build loyalty, and create those little moments of magic. Without them, the story loses some of its soul. And if you do have to make difficult decisions, be kind. Be human and communicate in a way that is respectful. This episode isn't just about Jellycat. It's about the wider relationship between brands and the independent shops that champion them. There's so much that could have been done differently with more care, more communication, and more respect. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend, a fellow retailer, parent, or someone who loves the independent shop experience. Because behind many best-selling products, there's a network of independent retailers who believed in it first, and they deserve to be part of the story. Thank you so much for listening. Do take a moment to follow the podcast or subscribe or whatever platform that you're on. And if you have a minute to rate and review it inside Apple Podcasts, that makes all the difference. See you next week.